Story 1. The Old Cabin in the Woods. Nathan was a part-time delivery driver, picking up shifts after his college classes. He didn't mind driving through quiet neighborhoods or venturing down country roads, even at night. The money was good, and he figured he had nothing to fear. That was until he received an order that would make him reconsider everything. It was a cold November night when Nathan got a notification for an order: a pizza, wings, and a soda. The delivery address was located about 30 minutes outside the town, in a secluded area that Nathan had never been to. As he drove further away from the well-lit streets, his GPS guided him onto a narrow, winding road that led deep into the woods. The signal on his phone weakened, and soon he had no service at all. The road, lined with thick trees on both sides, seemed endless. His headlights pierced through the darkness, but the more he drove, the more uneasy he felt. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spotted the cabin. It was old, dilapidated, and looked like it hadn't seen much upkeep in decades. Nathan hesitated, but remembered that the order was prepaid, so at least he wouldn't need to stick around long. He parked the car, grabbed the food, and walked toward the front porch. The place was eerily silent, and the only sound was the crunch of gravel beneath his feet. As he reached the door, Nathan knocked lightly, then louder when no one answered. Minutes passed, and there was still no response. He was about to leave the food on the porch when he noticed something peculiar. The windows, though covered in grime, had a faint glow of light behind them. Someone had to be inside. He knocked again, this time harder, calling out, "Delivery!" Suddenly the door creaked open. Just a crack. He could barely see anything inside, but he heard breathing, raspy and slow. Nathan's stomach tightened as an overwhelming sense of dread washed over him. "Your order." "I've got your order here," he stammered, holding up the pizza. But there was no response, only the steady sound of breathing. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Nathan saw movement in the woods, just beyond the clearing. His heart pounded in his chest as he tried to make out what it was. The figure was tall, gaunt, and moved unnaturally, as though it were stalking him. Before he could react, the door opened fully, revealing an elderly woman standing in the doorway. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes were wide with a glazed-over look. She smiled, though it was more of a grimace, and whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." Nathan, now fully panicked, dropped the food and ran to his car. As he sped away, he glanced in the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of the figure from the woods standing at the edge of the road, watching him leave. His phone buzzed, finally regaining service. He immediately checked the app to cancel any further orders to that location, only to find something chilling. The address had been deleted from the system. There was no record of the order. Story 2. The Disappearing Customer. Kayla worked for a popular food delivery service and often took late-night orders to earn extra cash. She had a few creepy encounters before, strange customers or weird requests, but nothing that truly scared her. That changed one night when she received an order for a fast food burger combo to be delivered to an apartment complex downtown. It was nearly midnight when Kayla pulled up to the building, an old brick complex with a dimly lit entrance. The order was for apartment 9, but when she arrived, she found the building had no clear numbering system. She wandered through the halls, her footsteps echoing off the cracked tiles. Finally, she found a door with a worn 9 on it, barely legible. Kayla knocked and waited. No answer. She knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. She pulled out her phone and called the number associated with the order. The call went straight to voicemail, a robotic voice saying, "The number you have reached is no longer in service." Frustrated, she texted the customer through the app, informing them that she was at their door. She waited, listening to the faint sounds of the city outside, but there was no reply. Finally, she decided to leave the food on the doorstep and mark the delivery as completed. As she walked back toward the stairwell, Kayla glanced over her shoulder at the door of apartment 9. Her heart skipped a beat. The door was open just a few inches. She could have sworn it was closed when she walked away. She hurried down the stairs, eager to get back to her car. Once in the safety of her vehicle, She marked the delivery as completed, but as soon as she did, her phone rang. It was a call from the app's customer service number. "Hi, Kayla. We're just checking on your last delivery. Did you make contact with the customer at apartment 9? "No," Kayla replied. "They didn't answer the door, so I left the food outside." There was a long pause before the voice on the other end responded. "That's strange. There's no record of an apartment 9 in that building." Kayla frowned, glancing up at the apartment complex. "What do you mean?" "We've had no previous deliveries to that address, and according to our records, apartment 9 was vacant. No one's lived there for years." Chills ran down Kayla's spine as she stared at the dark windows of the building. Without another word, she hung up and sped off into the night, vowing never to take another late-night order at that address again. Story 3. The Basement Request. Marcus had been working as a food delivery driver for nearly a year, and he had his share of odd experiences, but most of them could be chalked up to quirky customers. One late autumn evening, he received an order for Chinese food to be delivered to a house on the outskirts of town. It was a quiet residential area, and the house seemed perfectly normal at first. The order came with specific instructions. "Leave the food in the basement. The door is unlocked." Marcus was immediately suspicious. Who orders food and asks for it to be left in the basement? He debated canceling the delivery, but curiosity and the promise of a big tip got the better of him. When he arrived at the address, the house was dark except for a single light in the basement window. The front yard was overgrown, and the place looked like it hadn't been cared for in a long time. Marcus hesitated but decided to proceed with the delivery. He found the basement door on the side of the house, just as the customer had said, and true to the instructions, it was unlocked. Stepping inside, Marcus was greeted by a narrow, creaky staircase leading down into the basement. The air was damp, and the smell of mildew was overpowering. He called out, "Delivery!" But there was no response. He placed the bags of food on a small table by the stairs and turned to leave when he heard something behind him. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the darkened corner of the basement. Marcus froze. His heart raced as he slowly turned around. Out of the shadows stepped a man, tall and thin, his face partially obscured by the darkness. "Thank you," the man said in a voice that sent shivers down Marcus's spine. "I've been waiting for you." Marcus bolted up the stairs, slamming the door behind him. He sprinted to his car, his hands trembling as he fumbled with the keys. As he sped away, he glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the man standing in the doorway, watching him leave. But the house was dark, and no one was there. Later that night, Marcus received a notification, an unusually generous tip from the customer. He stared at the screen, feeling uneasy. Something about the whole situation didn't sit right with him. When he checked the delivery history the next day, the address had disappeared from the app. Marcus never drove back to that house. In fact, he stopped taking late-night deliveries altogether. These stories serve as a reminder that sometimes the strangest things happen in the dead of night. For food delivery drivers, the road can lead to places far darker than they ever imagined.